When I started playing Drive Girls, a couple of things struck me. Firstly, the characters were really shallow stereotypes of women, but I thought at least the gameplay felt smooth and easy to play. I'm not someone that pays much attention to frame rate, but it just seemed faster than other similar games I've played. The gameplay for me was the best part of the game. It was easy to get to grips with the battle system, but even though this was the best part of the game, it became repetitive and boring the longer I played. I want to admit before I continue that I didn't finish this game. The repetitive gameplay was part of the reason I just couldn't bring myself to keep playing, but it wasn't the only reason. Since I didn't finish the game, I'm calling this an impressions video rather than a review. The story of Drive Girls is just silly. There are some mechanical bugs that attacked an island, and it's up to a team of skimpily dressed women with lightsabers that can somehow turn into cars to take them down. The character's dialogue is so bad. When the main character joins, she's talking to one of the other characters about the bugs, and one of them is surprised to learn about them. It didn't make any sense that one of the Drive Girls whose job it was to fight the bugs didn't actually know anything about them. This is just one example of how silly the dialogue was at times. In order to review the game, I sat through all the cutscenes, but between the nonsensical story and the random shots of girls in bikinis because they showered together, I was getting quite frustrated at Drive Girls. The graphics of the game weren't too bad, but there wasn't a lot of variety in the environments or the enemies. The backgrounds weren't very detailed, and most levels were just the same highway with the occasional background swap. The enemies were very easy early on, but they got a lot harder as the game progressed. For the first few levels, you could just keep pressing square and triangle to attack, and the enemies would die quickly. But the enemies did get a lot stronger by around mission 6, and that tactic didn't work any longer. Then I discovered that all you need to do is jump and attack to knock down the enemy and then attack them on the ground. It worked on every enemy. Some enemies were fast, so they were harder to hit, but the jump attack tactic still worked. Ground attacks became pretty useless later on, but I just kept jumping and attacking and was getting pretty bored of doing the same thing over and over. But it was the only thing that actually worked in terms of taking down the enemies. As I mentioned earlier, the girls could turn into cars. You could turn into cars and knock down enemies, and there are also race levels. The driving felt imprecise and cumbersome. The race levels were easy and just not fun. The driving didn't have the weight and feel of driving cars like in games like Need for Speed. It may be expecting too much to have driving in a game like this as good as that of a dedicated racing game, but I kinda think it's not worth putting these levels in the game if you can't do it well. The levels are very formulaic. Most levels have you on a highway, you move to a checkpoint with multiple bugs. Once you take out the leader bug, then all the other bugs at the checkpoint die, and then you move on to the next checkpoint full of bugs. Levels last for around 5 to 10 minutes and follow the same pattern. Race levels are the only real variety, but as I mentioned, they aren't particularly fun. While you're moving between checkpoints, the roads have landmines on them that will damage you if you step or drive on them. I found this to be a bad design choice. Ramming your car into a horde of enemies can be satisfying, but with roads filled with landmines it's difficult to do that without hitting a mine and getting knocked out of drive mode. Another gripe I have with the game is that it overstays its welcome. Up to about mission 10 I was still happy playing the game even though the gameplay was a little bit simple and repetitive, but then continuing for another 5 missions I was getting really bored. I stopped playing after mission 16 and I believe there's 24 missions. I just wasn't enjoying my time with the game and just didn't want to continue. Other problems I have include the lock-on system for enemies doesn't work very well. You can be in the middle of fighting and targeting one enemy when suddenly it would just switch to another enemy. You also have guns in the game, but they're quite useless. They only have 2 or 3 bullets at a time and then they need recharging. I think the game could have been more fun if it was more like Earth Defense Force in terms of the shooting mechanics. And finally, one other issue of the game, when you do lose a level, it sends you back to the level select screen, instead of just having an option that says retry the level. It may seem like I'm being a bit picky by mentioning this, it's just a hassle to go through the 1 minute of loading screens and level select to play the same level that you were already playing. It would have made much more sense just to have a retry button when you lose a level. As you can tell, I don't have a lot of positive things to say about the game. Ultimately, I don't know who this game is really for. The story and characters are bad. If you want a Muso type game, then Dynasty Warrior games are much better and more varied. If you want a game with girls in skimpy clothes, then I recommend playing Criminal Girls 2 instead. At least that had a good game to play as well. I didn't play the last third of the game, so I can't tell you if the game suddenly gets better, but from my time with Drive Girls, I just can't recommend it. It's boring and repetitive with a bland story and one-dimensional characters. I don't enjoy being so negative about games, but I just can't find many redeeming features in Drive Girls. So, have you played Drive Girls? What did you think about it? Am I being too harsh in my assessment? Leave a comment, and as always, thanks for watching guys.